Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another season of Doom Patrol. Today, Season 3 finally debuted on HBO Max with the first 3 episodes, and it's just so exciting to have Doom Patrol back in our lives. I remember, when I was watching this morning, as soon as that first episode started and the intro played, and, the music, and, it's such a good intro, and I'm glad to have it back in my life. Season 2 just came out last year, so it's nice to see that we're now getting into more of a routine of getting these annual seasons, so I'm really excited to see that. And it's just such a good show. I'm glad to have it back in my life. And specifically today, where we got 3 episodes, because they're continuing the trend with HBO Max, where they debut seasons with the first 3 episodes of the season. I experienced this with Doom Patrol Season 2, Titans Season 3, which, by the way, I am going to do a video on the new episode of Titans, but this can be, really confusing and, hard to do, Doom Patrol and Titans, because it's, new episodes, same day, especially today, since it's 3 episodes of Doom Patrol. But anyway, we're going to try and make it work, and of course this is going to be a bit of a longer video because we are talking about all 3 episodes from this Doom Patrol Season 3 premiere, because if I did 3 separate videos, that would just be, I don't know if I can handle that. I also don't have time because I got to go to school in 20 minutes, so yeah. But anyways, that's enough wasting your time. So of course, spoiler warning, if you have not yet seen Doom Patrol Season 3 episodes 1, 2, or 3 yet, because we are going to jump into it right now. So, Doom Patrol Season 3 Episode 1, Possibilities Patrol. This premiere episode, of course, follows up after the cliffhanger of Season 2, because originally the season was supposed to have 10 episodes, and I think only had 9, so they were cut short on the storyline, so we left off with some huge cliffhangers, and this is one thing I wasn't a big fan of, is how they kind of just, rushed through it, but at the same time, it's understandable because of the pandemic, they had to shut down production and everything, but it still kind of sucks, how things were, wrapped up so quickly, or, for example, with the Candlemaker, because Dorothy defeats the Candlemaker literally in seconds, and it's one of those situations, not even she fought the Candlemaker, it's she basically convinced him, I don't want to hurt you and we should be friends, and that thing you're starting to see a lot more in more recent comic book properties, which, isn't always a bad thing, but I just feel like I'm seeing it so much, especially after watching The Flash Season 7, which, that was a disaster, and that happened every single episode. But anyway, that's what happened here. Definitely reminded me of that scene in Doctor Strange, where it was Dormammu have come to bargain, that whole thing. That's definitely what reminded me here of between the relationship of Candlemaker and Dorothy. But after she defeats him and he is no longer a villain, the Doom Patrol is now free from their wax encasings, because that's how the season ended off for them, was they were all trapped in the wax of the Candlemaker. And the Chief is dead, which I was half expecting but half not expecting, because I did do a video a couple months ago about there being the news that Timothy Dalton was not in this season, or at least didn't have as big of a role, and the main reason for that is due to, again, the pandemic, because he's older, so he's more at risk for the virus, so he didn't want to be here, taking that risk. So that's why he's not, doing much in this season, but I didn't think they'd actually kill off the character, especially, it's even worse for it to start off the season with, all of a sudden he's dead, because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure there was, some sort of cliffhanger with him at the end of Season 2, and now we're just, that's going nowhere, and we never even got to see him die or anything. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. I don't know. I just wish he could have gone out better. We do get other scenes with him later on in the episode, but we'll talk about that then when we get to it. But now Dorothy is in control of the Candlemaker. So she arrives at this amusement park where the Doom Patrol is all located, and she sees her father there, dead on the ground. She, of course, is super emotional. And then we skip ahead to 1 week later, where we start off some of our individual stories for the season, which is, of course, continuing the main stories that we saw in both Season 2 and Season 1. Where Cliff, he has a new story, where his brain is deteriorating, because obviously he is Robot Man, so he is a robot man, but he does still have one human part left of him that actually makes him Cliff, and that's his brain. So he has a human brain inside that robot body, but after these hundreds of years of living in that body, it makes sense that it would start to deteriorate. And then they even mention, I think in episode 2, that he's basically got Parkinson's. So that's pretty crazy, but I think it makes so much sense, and I'm really excited to see where it goes here. Meanwhile, you've got Rita continuing her story, of course, at the end of Season 2. She was starting to do that production of My Town in Cloverton, so she's doing that once again, but this time during rehearsal, first of all, she's like all freaked out by Niall's death, and like there's so many things that she wanted to tell him that she never had the chance to, so she's freaking about that when she gets on stage. And then of course, because she's having that emotional breakdown, her face starts to blob out. Everybody sees it, and especially because this whole play is literally about that time when she turned into a giant blob and almost destroyed the city. So obviously they're all freaking out. They kick her out. She basically gets bullied for the rest of the episode. And yeah, it's just hard not to feel bad for her. And like, especially because like she just lost the chief, and everybody's mourning the loss of the chief. You also have Vic telling Silas about Niall's death. And what's maybe even more interesting is because one of the characters in the show that we saw had the closest relationship to Niles Calder was actually Jane. And whether that was a love-hate relationship or whatever, like, she had a very close relationship with that character, but she has no idea that he is dead. She has no idea that that is a thing yet, because she never woke up. She's basically in a coma right now, because of how things ended in season 2. And so we catch up with her in the underground. She escapes the well. She wakes up and just starts walking around the underground to see like what's going on and everything. And what she finds is just so creepy and so disturbing, because everyone, all of the different personas are just doing puzzles. And obviously this is connected to Miranda, and she actually ends up running into Miranda, which we find out isn't even Miranda. That was the big reveal at the end of last season. And it's not Kay's father either. It's just like the darkness and fear of Kay. So she is like taking over the underground here, and things are just not going good, like, at all here. Until Kay actually shows up, and I'm really excited to see Kay taking on a bigger role, because she is like the original person here, so it makes sense that she'd have a bigger role now. So she actually rescues Jane and the other personas, and then it's basically this huge fight between Miranda and all of the other personas, and Miranda is like taking over primary now. So in real life, she is actually trying to hang herself so that she can kill Jane and the rest of the personas. But luckily, Jane is able to kill Miranda and save herself. And then it was really weird at the end how like they were all meeting in the underground, and then they just started eating Miranda's puzzle piece remains. That was kind of weird and disturbing, but I mean, this whole show was really weird. So honestly, didn't surprise me too much. But what did surprise me is not only after the death of the chief, we get to see his ghost, because we catch up again with Cliff. He is trying to figure out what's going on with his brain. It's actually like a something going on with his hand, but that's connected to his brain. And he gets a visit from the chief, and the chief tells him that his soul and his spirit is trapped here in Doom Manor until his body will be incinerated. And that's because Dorothy, she's kind of just keeping his body around because she didn't want to bury him until after Jane was able to say goodbye, like after she woke up and everything. So he's basically asking Cliff for help with this, and of course Cliff completely hates the chief, so he's not willing to do this. But then we do get basically the ending of the chief, and I do think this was kind of a good send-off of the character, where he kind of tried to mend his relationship with Cliff by saying that he sent the tape to Clara and was basically just trying to help him out. And, you know, Cliff says, "Thank you, I still hate you, but thank you." And that's it. So I have no idea if the chief is going to show up again, because we do know later on that he did actually end up getting buried. So I'm pretty sure he's like dead, not coming back, which again is really unfortunate. But yeah. So after all that gets done going on, of course, we can't forget to talk about Larry, because Larry's got his own thing going on. He kind of takes a little bit of a backseat in this season so far, but I still like his character. And the negative spirit wants to go up to space, just like was mentioned last season when there was another person, I don't remember her name, who had a negative spirit, and they were like, had basically become one with each other, and now the negative spirit wants to get that relationship with Larry, so he wants to go to space. And obviously Larry's like, I can't do it, Rita needs me and everything, but by the end of the episode, he does end up going to space, he says goodbye to Rita, and all that stuff. And then we get a nice resolution, which I think this episode is basically supposed to be like the season 2 finale, which is basically wrapping up all the storylines. You get to see Cliff visiting Clara and her baby. Dorothy leaves with the Chief's body in Danny the ambulance, so Danny is now an ambulance, no longer a street, and no longer just a brick. They're an ambulance now, so that was actually really cool to see through this episode. But then we do another time skip to 1 week later, where Rita finds a key that like there's an alarm going off on or something, and it opens up this panel in the bookshelf, and it's this phone is ringing, and it just says like it keeps saying arrival imminent, and I'm pretty sure that's the voice of Madame Rouge, because then we see somewhere else in Cloverton, that Madame Rouge does indeed arrive in her cool time machine drill, and she says that she's looking for Niles Calder, all while she's doing this, like, her face is morphing and everything, and she's a really weird character. So for those of you that don't know who Madame Rouge is, she's a classic Doom Patrol villain, but also not a villain. She's kind of an anti-hero, like, she has a split personality thing, so sometimes she's evil, sometimes she's good. And you see her that as she's morphing, that's her power set. She has powers very similar to Rita, actually. So I'm really excited to see that those parallels, and also their relationship, especially because their powers are so similar. But that is where episode 1 ends. So now it's time for Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 2, Vacay Patrol, which was a really fun episode that was just so cool, because we start off the episode with the Brotherhood of Evil, something I was so excited to see in this season. So it's 1949, you've got the Brain and Monsieur Mala, the giant French monkey, talking monkey, and they meet with Garguax, who is another classic Doom Patrol villain, and they send him after this new target, and they say, like, she has to be found, she has to be eliminated, and all this stuff, and that target is Rita. So they go undercover at this, like, hotel vacation resort, and you know, weeks and years go by, and by the time it gets to, like, week 232, they see a newspaper where it says the Brotherhood of Evil is defeated by Niles Calder and his Doom Patrol. So, basically, Garguax starts to lose hope, and he kind of gives up on the plan. But we'll catch up with him more later, because meanwhile we have Larry. He is in space, and this was such a cool scene where he's, like, it was just visually so cool, because you get to see him actually interact with the negative spirit. And for me, it wasn't completely clear what happened here, but just based off other things that happen, especially in the next episode, I think the negative spirit, like, separated from him. I'm not completely sure. Of course, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it was a little confusing, but that's definitely crazy if that is indeed what actually happened there. Then Cliff is also getting, like, really clingy with Clara and her family and the baby and her wife and all that stuff. Vic is searching for Ronnie, of course his girlfriend from last season, but Grid keeps shutting down, so he calls his father, Silas Stone, and turns out because he was helping Ronnie last season, and also a little bit in the first episode, basically Star Labs is like, yeah, we're watching you now, and we're basically in control of you. So everybody's life is just falling apart here. Everybody's life is just in pieces. So then you've got Rita, who comes up with this plan, because, by the way, she's still a blob here. So in most of this episode, she's just, like, in a bag, because she's literally just a blob sitting there. She decides we need to go on a vacation. So the whole team, they go on this vacation, and it just so happens to be at the same exact resort where Garguax was staying. And we get this really funny scene where Cliff meets Garguax in the sauna. That was really cool to see, and they find stuff in common. They're like, oh, I hate Niles Calder. You hate Niles Calder? Oh, we're best friends. And it was like that whole thing. So that was really cool to see. But after this, Garguax just gives up the mission and says, like, the mission is over, because, you know, obviously Rita is there, but, like, clearly she's just a blob, so she's not going to be any harm. So he kind of just gives up. And his assistant or henchman, Samuelson, which I don't think is a character from the comics, at least I couldn't find anything online about him, but he's basically just the henchman of Garguax here. He's very resistant of this, and he's like, no, the plan's not over, we need to keep going with this, and obviously he takes action later. But when we catch up with the Doom Patrol at the resort, like I said, their life is just in pieces, but they all go and get out there on the dance floor and just have a good time. I thought that was a really cool moment. It's like, you know, it's the whole, like, when life gives you lemons, just make lemonade out of it or something like that. Like, they're just making the best of what they have. And so that was really cool. But, of course, things go wrong because Garguax, he and Samuelson are, packing up and getting ready to go. But then all of a sudden his machine starts beeping, and then he comes to try and warn the Doom Patrol that they've got to run and they got to get out of there. But Samuelson shoots him and all the Doom Patrol. This was such a crazy moment. I was not expecting, not only, first of all, for Samuelson to be the overall big bad here instead of Garguax, because again, he was the henchman, but also the fact that he shot and killed every single one of these characters right here, which was just crazy. And then I love this moment where before Rita dies, she sees Madame Rouge, and before she gets shot, and Madame Rouge looks exactly like Rita, again, showing how, like, she can morph, and also because, like, since they have similar powers, I thought that was really, really cool to see. But now they're all dead. Like, the whole Doom Patrol is dead. It was such a crazy moment. Of course, that transitions us into episode 3, Dead Patrol, which starts off with, all these characters are dead. They're on this boat crossing the river to the afterlife, and everyone passes out. Everyone passes out here except for Rita, but then she ends up faking it just so she can get away with it and everything. And then we see Larry back at Doom Manor. He gets some packages and he's like, oh, I got some packages. He opens them up, and it's the dead bodies and just pieces, zombified pieces of these characters. So, obviously, that's pretty traumatic for him and pretty horrifying. Like, he sees his best friend Rita and Cliff and Jane and Vic all in there just dead. And then Dorothy ends up returning here in this episode. And she can tell that Larry's not doing the greatest with this reveal here, so she tries to comfort him and everything, and they start making pancakes, and Larry sees Rita's face in the pancakes. So they think, oh, what if she's alive? What if they can help them? So they call for help, and they call the Dead Boy Detectives, which is really cool. These are some really cool characters from the comics that we already knew were going to be premiering or debuting in this season, and they're actually getting their own spin-off series on HBO Max. I did a video about that a couple weeks ago, so check out that video if you haven't already. But I thought this was really cool and a nice setup again for their spin-off series, because then you've got not only the two dead boys, but then you've also got Crystal, which I don't really know anything about, but they help our heroes figure out that the Doom Patrol is still alive because, they're dead and they're like on their way to the afterlife, but they're basically still being processed before they're officially dead. So Larry astral projects himself, very, again, Doctor Strange style, and follows Charles and Edwin into the afterlife. Now, meanwhile, our Doom Patrol members are having these crazy, like, heaven scenarios going on in their minds, and it's like a complete purgatory here. Like, you see Cliff interacting and seeing his dad, Vic seeing his mom, Jane seeing her abuela. Like, it was some really cool interactions here that I really enjoyed seeing, but of course by the end of it, they are able to escape. They are able to wake up and be safe and everything. So they're able to escape their purgatories. And then Larry and the Dead Boy Detectives find Rita. And then the Doom Patrol end up finding them. They had to take down some of the Watchers, as they called them, the creepy guards of the afterlife. And then they get attacked by Night Nurse, which is another character from the comics, and she was just like super creepy and demented here, and seems like she even has some ties specifically to Edwin and Charles, again, the Dead Boy Detectives, so maybe that's a character we could see pop up again in their series if we see their origins or something, because I think they were saying something about like curfew, so maybe that was like their teacher or like mother or stepmother, or like if they were living in an orphanage or something like that type of thing. I don't really know for sure, but she definitely has some sort of connection to them. But of course, our heroes are able to escape, and everyone wakes up alive in Doom Manor, except obviously the Dead Boy Detectives, because they were already dead, but they're still there anyway. And Dorothy leaves once again. This is one thing that was a little weird, because Dorothy played such a huge role in season 2, so it's weird that now she's like in like 2 episodes of this season so far, and she's like not doing much, especially since they wrapped up her storyline so quickly at the beginning of the season, but she leaves with the Dead Boy Detectives, so I'm not sure if she left to actually like join them and actually be with them, and if she's going to be in the spinoff series or anything like that, or if it's just a situation of like they were all leaving, because she just said she wanted to go find some new things. So I'm not sure if she left with them or if she just left and they just went out at the same time. I'm not completely sure there. But then at the very end of the episode, we get the big setup for season 3, where things are really going to start kicking off here, because Madame Rouge just walks in. Apparently she's already at Doom Manor. She just walks down the stairs and she's just already there. And obviously Jane is like, "Who are you?" And then Madame Rouge says, "Good question," because she actually has basically amnesia. Like, she traveled here again via time machine. It was like this crazy drill time machine. And so that's how she ended up here at Doom Manor, and that's why she asked when she first arrived, what year was it? Yeah, it's 2021, and this is basically her character for the season. This is what we heard, I think, from Entertainment Weekly, that in this season, she arrives at Doom Manor knowing that she came here for a reason, but not knowing what that is, not remembering why she's here, what her goal was. But obviously, as she mentioned at the end of episode 1, she's looking for Niles Calder. He's dead, so I'm not exactly sure what her next step is, but as we saw in the trailer, seems like she's gonna have some connections to the Sisterhood of Dada and all that good stuff. So definitely crazy. And speaking of that trailer, if you haven't already, you can check out my trailer breakdown as well. But for now, guys, that was the first 3 episodes of Doom Patrol Season 3, the premiere on HBO Max. Now we're gonna be getting weekly episodes, which again, it's gonna be really hard to do with both Titans and Doom Patrol, but we'll find a way to make it work.